Diagnosis of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not a traditional political movement. It exhibits multiple psychological disorders, each one feeding into the next, creating a system of delusion, hysteria, projection, and self-destruction. If Freud, Jung, Kraepelin, Charcot, Janet, and Frankl were to assess its ideology clinically, the findings would be alarming. Freud defined neurotic regression as a psychological retreat into childhood in response to stress. The modern Democratic Party functions under this exact principle. It pushes infantilism, creating a dependency on government where individuals demand constant protection from responsibility. Free healthcare, free housing, guaranteed income. These are not policies of self-reliant adults, but the demands of a child expecting a caretaker. This aligns with Freud's theory of collective neurosis, where a society abandons maturity and replaces it with emotional decision-making. Jung's concept of shadow projection explains the Democratic Party's obsession with labeling opponents as fascists, racists, and oppressors, while simultaneously implementing authoritarian policies, racial discrimination through affirmative action, and speech suppression. Jung warned that when a group refuses to confront its own moral failings, it projects them onto an external enemy. This is why the Democratic Party accuses others of the very things it practices: censorship, intolerance, and state control. Kraepelin, the father of modern psychiatric classification, would diagnose today's democratic leadership with delusional disorder. This is a condition in which an individual or group holds steadfast to beliefs that contradict reality. The idea that men can become women, that socialism can work despite historical evidence, and that violent criminals should be released under the belief they will reform are clear symptoms of a detachment from observable truth. When confronted with facts that oppose their beliefs, Democrats respond not with adjustment, but with rage, denial, and attempts to silence dissent. Charcot, who studied hysteria and mass suggestion, would recognize today's Democratic Party as an example of social hysteria. From climate doomsday predictions to gender identity activism to election conspiracy claims, the party thrives on fear-driven reactions, not rational policy. Charcot demonstrated that people in a state of hysteria can be manipulated to believe in realities that do not exist, provided they are reinforced by authority figures and repeated often enough. This is precisely how democratic leaders keep control over their base, through an endless cycle of manufactured crises. Janet, who studied dissociative identity disorders, would argue that the Democratic Party itself lacks a stable identity. It shapeshifts as needed, abandoning positions without hesitation. Just years ago, Democrats supported strong borders, women's rights, and the right to free speech. Today, they denounce those same positions as oppressive, often rewriting their own history to obscure past contradictions. This political dissociation means the party does not stand for anything beyond power accumulation. Frankl, a psychiatrist who studied the effects of nihilism on mental health, would see the Democratic Party as fundamentally rooted in resentment and destruction rather than creation. It does not offer a positive vision for the future, only a demand to dismantle what already exists: history, institutions, culture, and even biology. This ideological framework follows Frankl's warning that a society without meaning will collapse into bitterness, irrationality, and authoritarianism. Taken together, these clinical assessments suggest that the Democratic Party, as it currently operates, is not just misguided but psychologically dysfunctional. It encourages hysteria, nurtures delusion, fosters identity confusion, and relies on government dependency to maintain control. If left unchecked, this system of mass psychosis will continue eroding both national stability and individual autonomy.